Make sure to check us out on Letterboxd for written reviews.
for films that we've done not only on the podcast, but outside of the podcast too.
Links in the description below.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Rewatch podcast. My name is Samuel,
And my name is Jaden.
and this is a podcast where we talk extensively about a certain film and then decide whether it deserves a rewatch from you. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any other place you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to reach the show, you can comment on the YouTube video or send us an email at theonerewatchpodcast@gmail.com. Today we're going to be continuing our adventures into the Star Wars universe. It's very exciting. It's one of my favourite ones. What movie are we talking about today, Jane?
Today we're talking about Return of the Jedi. It's been a while. We're back. We're doing it.
Yes, we had a bit of a break. The YouTube algorithm sort of said, "Oh, you've retired. That's what you're saying.
Yep.
You're dead."
It's going to be rough numbers.
So we're back, hoping to revitalise those numbers, or maybe YouTube's just left us.
Who knows, man? Like, YouTube is just so hard to figure out.
Yes, but we're back. Regardless of whether the YouTube algorithm wants us, we're here producing some more episodes, continuing our journey in the Star Wars universe with Return of the Jedi. This is our it's our 8th film, wouldn't it be? Because we've done the
We've done Solo. We've done Rogue One.
the prequels, so that's
five,
six,
seven,
seven,
eight.
and then this is our 8th one. So obviously after this, it's only the sequels, to go.
Yee.
So we better make the most of this.
Yeah.
Because this is probably going to be the last happy episode
Yeah.
where we get to celebrate this magnificent world that George Lucas created in Star Wars. So we were talking about Return of the Jedi. Let's go to the plot synopsis for that film.
Radio. The Empire falls. Luke Skywalker leads a mission to rescue his friend Han Solo from the clutches of Jabba the Hutt, while the Emperor seeks to destroy the rebellion once and for all with a second dreaded Death Star.
Yes, the Death Star's back, baby.
Can I just jump on and say, how, like, generic do you have to be to say, okay, look, we had the Death Star in the first film, let's just do that again. Like, it's the same thing.
So I've been listening to some of the commentaries on Star Wars: A New Hope and Empire to sort of, prepare for Return of the Jedi, because it has been a while since we watched those movies. So I thought I'd go back to them, but I put a bit of a spin on it to keep it interesting. I listened to those George Lucas commentaries, which were really interesting. He said that the original plan was to not have the Death Star in the first movie. But because it was sort of like either this is going to work in one movie or I'm not going to be able to make the others sort of thing. So he took the Death Star, which wasn't supposed to be in the New Hope, and put it in the New Hope. But then still, he probably should have changed that Return of the Jedi script.
It's
right?
the same thing. And that's why I like Empire, because it's, it's not, let's blow up the huge rebellion base, the huge Empire base. It's something that's actually different. Yeah,
it's sort of like the simplistic, once we blow this up, good guys win.
Yeah.
Whereas in reality,
no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, even we saw in the sequels, blowing up the Death Star's not enough.
And I think a lot of the TV shows delve into that as well. I mean, even the Bad Batch, I think, went into that, because the Bad Batch is like the scraps of like the Empire.
Right.
And they're sort of still dealing with those problems.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's...
the Republic, you mean?
The Republic, sorry.
It still goes to show that, like, once we're told by the story that the bad guy has lost, they haven't really.
They haven't.
And even reading some of the books, so that Shadows of the Empire, it's called Heir to the Empire.
Yeah.
Set after Return of the Jedi, there's still a lot of Star Destroyers that weren't at the Battle of Endor, even though it was like the fight for everyone's lives.
Yeah.
you know, you can't just pull in every single Star Destroyer from the galaxy. It's a huge
Yeah.
galaxy. So
I
blowing
mean,
up the Death
look
Star.
at the Rise of Skywalker. There's
Yeah.
like a whole new fleet of like unused
Yeah.
Star Destroyers, but we don't really talk about that.
Yeah, so I think bringing back the Death Star for this movie is certainly one of the most bold criticisms that I have of
Yep.
the film.
Yeah.
But yeah, so let's get into some general thoughts then. What, would you recommend this film to someone who hasn't seen it? And then also, I'd like to know, from a nostalgic point of view, you know, where is this on your sort of Star Wars favorites list?
Okay. It's definitely one of the more fun Star Wars movies. Like, A New Hope's kind of hard to get through in the first act because, you know, it's R2D2 and C3PO wandering in the Tatooine desert, and then all of the stuff with Luke on Tatooine is not that interesting either. But like from start to finish, the Return of the Jedi is just having fun.
Yes.
Like it's not necessarily like it's not necessarily a good movie. It's acclaimed to be good in some aspects, but it's nothing groundbreaking like the original Star Wars or Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
And in that aspect, it might be the most fun of the three. I think I still have more fun with Revenge of the Sith. So in terms of rankings, I'd probably place Revenge of the Sith above Return of the Jedi. But they're very similar in terms of like rewatchability. Like
Yeah.
if I was to sit down and watch like a singular one, it's probably going to be Revenge of the Sith or Return of the Jedi, just because you've got like random little Ewoks running around. The whole sort of first act with Jabba's sail barge is really cool as well.
Yeah.
It's just got like some fun stuff in it.
Yeah, it certainly does. And Luke's got a green lightsaber. How cool
Yeah,
is that? That's one of the best things about this movie, in
Yeah.
my opinion.
His outfit in this is pretty cool.
Yeah. It's interesting though that your two favorites and my two favorites as well. I would say Revenge of the Sith and Return of the Jedi are certainly my top two favorites. This probably is my favorite, to be honest, but Revenge of the Sith is very close.
Yeah.
But they're both finales of the trilogy. Why do you think, you know, our favorite ones are the finales?
Well, I wouldn't call it my favorite. I'd still say Empire's my favorite.
Oh, okay.
But this is definitely the most fun. Like I said
okay.
before. Yeah.
So it's probably just fun then because there's just so many things happening.
Yeah, I think it's just good
Stories wrapped
to have
up.
closure to the franchise, right? Like the whole end sequence and how they're like celebrating. Well, I won't go too much into it because spoiler territory, but
it leaves you satisfied,
Yeah,
doesn't it?
yeah.
It doesn't leave you thinking, oh, I've got to watch the next one now.
yeah.
You know, you get to watch this, and you don't necessarily have to watch. If you're a fan and you've watched all of these Star Wars films, you can very easily jump into Revenge of the Sith, have a great time. In fact, I do that a lot.
Yeah.
Like, a lot
There's
of
no starting with Attack of the Clones.
Yeah,
No one does.
or
You don't just
Phantom Menace.
watch The Last Jedi on a whim. You know, like
yeah. Or and you don't just watch. Or do you just watch Empire on the limb? Or
well, I think there's something special about Empire that makes me do that.
Yeah.
But like, you either start with the start one or you either finish with the finishing one. You never go for the middle one because that's just awkward.
yeah, that's just weird, isn't it? You're a psychopath if you do
Apart from whether it's Empire, but yeah.
Yeah, sure. That's probably a good exception. So is this film worth a rewatch for those Star Wars fans out there? Obviously, we've had a lot of Star Wars movies. Perhaps if the fans looking to get back into them, is this one to check out?
I think if you're rewatching Star Wars or if you're rewatching the original trilogy, you don't skip it. That's just kind of tradition.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, look, if you're sitting down and you're like, okay, I want to watch some Star Wars, why not watch Return of the Jedi? It's got some great stuff in it. It's fun. You don't really have to think about it too much. Yeah, it's just a great feel-good movie. Some dumb stuff happens in it. You know, it's there's some funny stuff to pick up on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good fun.
All right, so we'll move on to now the acting and some of the characters that we liked. I'll say Luke Skywalker in this movie is probably the best Luke Skywalker like representation we've ever had. Like I think Mark Hamill really comes into his performance here. Not to say he was weaker in the previous films, but I think he's definitely got into the role a bit more.
Yep.
So I really like Luke Skywalker in this film. That would sort of be my character standout. What about you? Do you have any characters that you particularly like in this film?
In this film, yeah, I'm a big fan of Luke in this as well. I think it's cool to see him, finally as a Jedi. Before we've kind of just seen him sort of learning the ways of the Jedi, and now he's using Force mind tricks, Force chokes. So yeah, it's cool to see him, eerily walk into Jabba's palace with his hood on. That stuff's cool. As for other characters, nothing really stands out. I mean, Ian McDiarmid gives a pretty good performance as Palpatine. I don't think we've really seen too much of him before in the original trilogy.
No, he hasn't. So he hasn't appeared in person until this movie, which is a pretty bold move.
Yeah.
I believe he didn't appear at all in A New Hope, and he was a hologram in The Empire Strikes Back.
But that was a redo, I think, because the original hologram,
special edition. Yeah.
The original hologram in Empire was something else. That was really weird. And then they came back and they were like, okay, let's put in McDiarmid.
Which is a good idea.
It's a good idea.
But there are a lot of other additions.
Yeah.
Regarding these, and if you're a Star Wars fan, you know what we're talking about with the special editions. So when George was doing the prequel movies, he went back to these original movies and put in some CGI elements to sort of liven things up a bit. There are a few...
There's stuff I agree with.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think we know what we're talking about later on in the movie.
There are a few instances where you're like, oh, that was unnecessary.
Yeah.
But then this one with Palpatine.
Yeah.
It's a great choice.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah, and then, there's singing monsters and stuff, which
that's the
probably
stuff,
not.
That's the stuff that's a bit more unnecessary.
Yeah.
But if you're going to add in Palpatine instead of like some weird looking monster sort of thing, which is with the original thing, it's like, well, of course, that's just a continuity error fixed, isn't it?
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you do that?
There's like this shot in A New Hope where they're on Tatooine. And this Dewback walks across the screen. I think it's a Dewback, and it takes up the whole screen. Yeah. And I think that's like a transition. I don't know, but
no, it's not. It
just walks across the screen. Yeah.
It's like
why?
Yes. No. That's a very famous one. But we'll get into some specific examples of the CGI, particularly in this film.
Yeah.
I don't know. It is present in the other films, but I think in Return of the Jedi, George Lucas was a bit trigger happy with it.
Yeah, He just went full out. Like, he couldn't help himself.
Yeah. But that's George Lucas, isn't he? He can't help himself. In terms of the prequels, I mean, a lot of that was, he just couldn't help himself. Why wouldn't you just...
And I think that's what makes the prequels just kind of, like, stupid fun. Yeah. Is the fact that, like, it's just got so much dumb stuff in it that just makes it fun.
But you can tell, like, George Lucas, like, that's what he loved. Like, that was... It's all very inspired. Like, you can feel... the vision there, and it's not like cheap, like just for the sake of doing 3 movies. No, these were 3 movies that he really put the effort into. Yeah, and even though some would say he probably put too much effort into them, and then put some things in that didn't need to be in there. But that's the debate with the prequels. So obviously we've touched on a bit of the CGI, but the visuals from just the entire movie. What did you think of them?
I think they're pretty good. Obviously, I want to say this is 1983. Yeah, let's go. 1983. It's pretty breathtaking, the fact that, you could have open space, you could have sand dunes, you could have a full sand barge. Some pretty cool stuff going on. Just for its time. I mean, Star Wars in general is pretty pioneering in how it went about all of the stuff.
Yeah, and the use of miniatures and the use of like practical effects.
I was going to talk about practical effects as well.
And then the use of like painting sometimes. Like sometimes a single shot would just be a matte painting. Yeah, and it looks really detailed.
There's scenes, especially when Palpatine arrives.
Yeah. Just matte painting.
Where it's they've layered a painting, so. They've drawn like stormtroopers onto a painting and they've put it on like the frame. Yeah. And then they've got like the first row was like just regular people, and then like a few rows back is just all like painting.
Yeah.
It's cool. So cool. Like, you don't see that stuff anymore. And Jabba, the practical effects on Jabba the Hutt's really cool as well.
Yeah, that's why I think there was like 6 or 7 people.
I was going to say
inside
6
Jabba the
people
Hutt.
manning, Jabba the Hutt.
Pretty crazy.
Someone separate for the tongue moving that around.
Yeah, I mean Jabba's he's full of life, isn't he?
Yeah.
Just a lot of details there, and obviously got the puppeteering with Yoda as well. Still incredible, like that. The performance that they could get out of that puppet is still. We might have said this in Empire, but just the emotion that comes across from Yoda, and it's just a puppet. It's just incredible.
Yeah.
But yes, there are a lot of very remarkable choices and when it comes to the visuals. I think you can definitely see nowadays, with like the benefit of hindsight, you can see CGI elements that have been put in there.
Yeah.
But when there aren't any CGI elements, it looks really, really good.
Yeah.
I'd say better than the prequels in
sure,
some
for
areas.
sure. Yeah.
Because the prequels, almost every shot has a bit of CGI in it.
It's just not fun to look at that sort of stuff. Like, just it looks flat. Like when you see Anakin and Obi-Wan on some ship of, I'm just trying to think what they're called. It's not the Republic.
Are you thinking like the transport ships?
Yeah, I'm thinking of like the Trade Federation ships.
Oh yeah. Right.
Yeah, where like it's Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon Jinn at the start, and it's just it's just all grey, and it looks so two-dimensional.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
It's cool to have some depth in in the shot. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the prequels came a long way in terms of their CGI. So like that Mustafar fight in Episode 3, I mean that looks sensational.
Yeah.
But then even in Episode 3, take some other scenes, it doesn't look as good. So and you can see in this film, Return of the Jedi, when it's done practically, it looks beautiful.
So
and but then you can see in the background, you can see that AT-AT, that's CGI, because that doesn't look as good as this one here, which is stop motion.
I noticed this as well. Yeah, you've got like ATSTs walking in Endor.
It's AT-ST, that's right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's funny.
Big difference. If you're a rebel, you want to run into an
Yeah,
AT-ST
yeah.
instead of AT-AT.
And they've got like an extra like sail barge like going around. It's not a sail barge, but like the mini versions of it.
Yeah.
There's like an extra one that's just flying around, and then the other one's just completely still.
All right. In terms of sound, every sound in this movie is an organic sound.
Yep.
Because obviously we didn't have those sort of electronic libraries back then. So Ludwig Göransson's career wouldn't have been very successful, as you can imagine.
No.
Considering his library, not to he's one of the best composers working today, but just to say that like every sound is organic is just so like you can't even.
How do you fathom that? Like, how do you create
a blaster shot without a blast, without like any computers?
Yeah.
Like,
it's crazy stuff.
The creativity that went into these movies is just sensational. But yeah, what do you think of the score in this movie as well?
If I'm going to be honest, all of the Star Wars scores just like blend into one another for me.
For sure.
There is a few scores or songs that really stood out. I'm a huge fan of like the final song, but I won't go into it too much because it's spoiler region. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of that final song, and I can't remember I don't know which the other one was that you added to the playlist.
Maybe some Yoda themes? Or,
Yeah, it might have been a Yoda theme.
Maybe even the Force theme.
Yeah.
We've already had the Imperial March from Empire Strikes Back, so it'd be unfair to say that was a great part of this film, because it's just brought over.
Yeah.
But still, the music is sensational, and I really do love the Ewoks. The Ewok theme, so this Endor theme is really, really cool. So, so yeah. All right, let's dive into some more detailed thoughts then. The opening crawl I thought was a bit problematic.
Are we going into spoiler territory?
Yeah, spoiler territory now. So obviously, if you haven't seen Return of the Jedi,
what are you doing to start with? I feel like we say that every time. Go watch it.
Yeah. Unless it's Black Widow. Then we say don't go watch it. Okay, so some more detailed thoughts. The opening crawl. I'm going to say this on this movie because I know that there are some terrible opening crawls coming up in terms of the Star Wars movies. So I think it's only fair that I, take a shot at this opening crawl because in this opening crawl, I mean, I know it's an exposition dump. Like,
Yep.
that's sort of the beauty of it. It
Yep.
sort of it sets the stage. It's sort of like a once upon a time. This is happening. Thrust you right into the interesting bit of the story. But this one, it just says the Empire has built another Death Star. It's like,
Does
what?
it?
Hold up, sorry, what? Like,
I kind of didn't watch it when it was happening.
yeah,
so,
it sort of establishes. Oh yeah, so even though the Empire was sort of defeated 2 movies ago, and they struck back in the last movie.
yeah.
They built another Death Star, and now here's another movie, and it's like a bit. Oh,
Was this necessary?
yeah. It makes you wonder why the Empire would build another Death Star,
Yeah.
considering the other one went so wrong.
Yeah.
How have they done it so quickly? Because presumably, the Death Star took a long time to create
Yeah.
in the New Hope. So
It's also crazy to me that like every big planet, like evil base, is able to be destroyed in the exact same way as the last one. It's like they just don't learn
they
from
just
like
don't
their
like
mistakes.
make a big shield or
Like
something.
they have like a perfect pathway into the center. Same goes with Starkiller Base as well. They go into the center, they blow it up, and then they go out, and everything's all good.
Yeah.
It happens at every single one.
So as in like they
So in the first one, Luke does a trench run,
yeah.
and then he
fires
them,
torpedo in.
and then it goes down into the center and blows it up.
Yeah.
In the second one, Lando and his buddies go into the center of the Death Star,
blow it up.
shoot it, get out, blow it up.
Yeah.
In the third one, I think I can't remember who it was. It might have been Poe or something.
In The Force Awakens.
Goes into the. Oh, was it the Force Awakens?
Yeah, they blew up something in the Force
Yeah.
Awakens. Yeah.
He goes into the
Remember,
center
that's
of
a
it.
new that's a New Hope ripoff. Remember, so
Yeah,
it would have been-
well, yeah, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Goes into the center, blows it up.
Yeah.
They all end the same way.
Yeah. And that was a plot hole until a movie called Rogue One, a Star Wars story, came along and then fixed that plot hole. But it only fixed that plot hole for A New Hope.
Yeah.
Because now we know that there was a weakness because of Galen Erso, and he created that weakness because he felt guilty about constructing this machine, which is great. Oh, Rogue One, such a great movie, and fills that fills that plot hole perfectly.
Yep.
But now the Empire are doing it again. Why?
Yeah.
And the same problem.
Yeah, yeah.
So why? Why? And in Rogue One, they even. Oh no, they don't. They don't find out in Rogue One because they don't get the Death Star plans. But presumably, some Imperial general would have gone, oh, okay, so they've gone in, they've very easily blown up our huge machine. Shall we perhaps change that?
Yeah.
But they just don't. So it's a bit stupid.
It's a bit odd, isn't it? Yeah.
It's not the worst plot hole in Star Wars.
Yeah.
There's been far worse.
It's also funny how like Rogue One had this shield sort of base on Scarif, right? And the plans were stored on Scarif, and they had to get to Scarif first to be able to get to the Death Star. The same thing happens in Return of the Jedi. They have to go to Endor first.
Right, to lower the
shields to get into the second Death Star.
That's right.
It's like a completely rinse and repeat the Return of the Jedi.
It is a bit different, I guess, in terms of like in Rogue One they're not blowing up the Death Star. That's not like their mission.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can see what you mean.
There is huge similarities between Star Wars and Return of the Jedi. Like they are very similar.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree there.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a shame. But I still have fun with it, and one of the reasons why I love this movie so much is that Jabba's palace sequence, man.
Yeah.
Because that sequence there, I think it goes for maybe 30 minutes. Is my favorite 30 minutes of Star Wars. That's
really?
honestly, that I love that. Like it's very nostalgic for me because I remember, I think we had the DVDs of the original trilogy, and I think we may have lost A New Hope, so I've never watched that a lot.
Yeah, yep.
So I've only probably seen that 5 times maybe.
But you've
But
seen,
like I Return of the Jedi, like that's the one that I
20
definitely
times.
had. So
Yeah.
I was like watching that one on repeat.
On repeat. Yeah.
and just Luke's green lightsaber, just the fun, the Jabba's palace, you know, all of these aliens. And that's what I love about Star Wars. You have all the diversity in the alien kinds, and you know, Boba Fett's there, sort of like being the James Bond, sort of chatting up some alien ladies. Just like the atmosphere is just so cool. You know what I mean?
It is a really cool atmosphere, and I probably the first like half hour, the whole Jabba's palace sequence is probably my favorite part of the movie. It's just so cool seeing like Luke Skywalker just walk in and like own the place, you know.
Yeah, he just comes through like as this competent Jedi in his black robes, and we can talk a bit about, you know, how the colouring of the outfits sort of symbolizes Luke's journey. I think we may even touch on it in Empire, perhaps.
I think we might have,
but now he's in black, sort of like, oh, you know, maybe he's going a bit towards the dark side, maybe not. I mean, audiences at the time thought that was a very genuine possibility that he could go to the dark side.
It looks stupid looking at it now, like, you know, like Luke Skywalker's always been the good guy. But back in 1983, when people first saw this in cinemas, it was intended, you know, as Luke was sort of a split personality, whether he's going to turn to the dark side, whether he's going to be the good side. And if they made trailers back then, I'm sure they would have like made it really ambiguous.
Have you seen some of those trailers?
I have seen.
God, they're horrendous.
I think I've seen Star Wars, the original Star Wars trailer. Because I saw the whole like medal ceremony in the trailer.
Just giving away the end of the
just
movie
giving away
straight away.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, those trailers are not good.
Yeah.
I've seen like the Empire trailer when they were advertising it in cinemas when they were doing a rerun, and I was like, oh, that is a bad trailer.
Yeah.
But I'm sure I know people have definitely put together like
modern trailers
that would look cool, but yeah, the trailers, man, just back then. But I guess you didn't really need trailers back then.
No.
Because you would just hear about Star Wars and want to go see it.
Yep.
So anything specific about Jabba's palace that you really like?
I mean, the Rancor sequence is just so cool, man. And the fact that that's all practical as well, the whole Rancor, it's just so cool.
We've seen a Rancor done recently in CGI, I believe. Was that a CGI?
I think it was CGI,
in the Book of Boba Fett. Just not as good.
Just not a fan, yeah.
Which, I mean, I've never seen anything in CGI that looks better than doing it practically.
Yeah. I just like how the Rancor moves in Return of the Jedi. Like, he's so slow, like, he's so vulnerable. And then in the Book of Boba Fett, they made him like this King Kong like killing machine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and just like Luke Skywalker can so easily get out of that Rancor pit in Return of the Jedi, but they make it like a really intense sequence. You could easily just like run around him, which I think he does. Just run around him, like force push him, and boom, like the Rancor is dead.
Yeah, and you're like, use your lightsaber, and then we find out later that he doesn't have his lightsabers. But if we knew that, we would have gone, oh no, like what's he gonna do?
Yeah.
But it's still very creative how he sort of overcomes that with the rocks and
and the bone
door,
shutting
the door, and then the Rancor keeper comes out, and he's like really sad. I love that sort of like perspective shift where you're like, oh yes, the big monster's dead, and then there's like this big man comes out and he's like, oh no, my Rancor's dead. And he starts crying. But really good stuff. And I love seeing Lando Calrissian undercover there. So he's now part of the gang from Empire Strikes Back. And obviously Princess Leia, you know, just doing competent stuff, going to save Han. Unfortunately, obviously it doesn't go very well for her, but it went very well for teenage boys at the time. Because what resulted in there. What are your thoughts on that Princess Leia dress?
I don't think we should probably say the name of it just because YouTube might flag us.
It's a bit problematic nowadays, I think.
Yeah, it's extremely revealing.
Yes.
Like it's like I thought like prior to watching this like again, like I thought, okay, yeah, this dress is fairly revealing, but like watching it again, I was like, holy moly,
there is really nothing under
like,
there.
Carrie Fisher actually wore that. She was swinging between stuff.
Very flashing everybody. And especially, I believe they would have shot that. Well, maybe they would have shot it on a sound stage, but if they did that in the desert as well, that would not have been very pleasant for her. But yeah, I love that whole scene with once Luke gets his green lightsaber, we get to see him in action because we really haven't seen him use the lightsaber against anyone but Darth Vader. And just seeing him use the green lightsaber to, chop up some civilian dudes.
Some Gamorrean guards.
Is really cool, yeah, and some guards. And then also Boba Fett, he chops his gun off.
Yep.
Which he has the gun in the book of Boba Fett.
It's actually, okay, we don't talk about that.
So that's a...
Yeah, maybe he got a new one. It's actually really funny seeing Boba Fett, like, die in this movie just, like, so easily.
Yeah.
And then recognizing, later on how big of a character he is. Like,
yeah.
It's just always going to be so funny to me that they killed off this character that everyone loved in the
George
most,
Lucas
like,
just like, oh, no,
stupidest way possible.
Yeah, he didn't really go out with much sort of class. Did he? Yes, but some would probably argue that they would have liked him to stay dead now, which is kind of sad. but I think it is very amusing. He does have a few cool moments before that though. Like he has a cool moment where he's about to shoot like a rocket at Luke Skywalker, and Han Solo's like. Or Chewie's like yelling at Han Solo, and Han Solo's like, "What?" Boba Fett?
Turns around,
and he turns around. And that's when he whacks the jetpack.
Yeah.
Which is just
it's so dumb.
Yeah,
but that's what I mean. Like it's so dumb that it's so fun. You know?
Yeah, it's a fun time.
Yeah, and that's always what Star Wars has been to me. It's just like it's not serious storytelling. It's nothing like amazing. It's just dumb fun. So much of the stuff just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, George Lucas said that with the Star Wars movies, he was trying to do like serials. So like almost like a TV episode where you could jump in, have a good time. Obviously, there's going to be a bit of an emotional sort of poignancy to that. Like there's a bit of an emotional journey, but like nothing too serious. Like it's a bit of fun.
Yeah.
You're seeing cool things, cool environments, people doing cool things, and you can sort of jump in and out. And you can definitely get it with all of the movies, even Empire, which is probably the darkest. There's still humor. There's still, everyone's still having a good time. Sure, characters go through tough times, but they overcome it, and by the end, it's a happy ending.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But yeah, obviously, I'm a big fan of that Jabba's palace scene. So, and a few things. So we get a droid. I don't know if this ever scarred you, but there's a droid that is lowering some like molten lava onto another droid's feet.
Yeah.
And from childhood, that's just always really disturbed me. And I was just like, oh, that poor droid. Like you can just imagine if somebody put like a really hot piece of metal on your feet, and you could do nothing about it.
Yeah.
But the thing is, that droid is the same droid in Book of Boba Fett. So that white droid. That's the droid that's doing the lowering.
Is it?
So that droid is a
that droid's a menace, man.
Yeah, and he's just like an
Somebody
interpreter.
stop the droid.
Yeah, so nobody really stopped to think about that.
Yeah.
And Bib Fortuna, he gets blown up on the sail barge, but he's alive in Book of Boba Fett. So I'll just leave that there. And so does Max, what's his name, by the way? You don't specifically see him, but it's obviously like they have the band on the barge, and the barge goes boom. I think they're all dead. But
we need the Max Rebo band.
Yeah. I mean, is he still alive? I guess we'll have to wait a while.
I think I actually saw something that said he wasn't in.
Yeah,
Book
we
of Boba Fett
didn't
spoilers.
see him.
He wasn't actually in that shot.
In that shot where they blow up the whatever that place was.
Yeah.
Like the casino or something.
Yeah.
So the CGI dance number, we get...
Oh.
The music's really good. Like, it goes into this, like... Yeah. It's really loud, sort of jazz thing. And it's like, oh, yeah, that's really good. And then this, like, frog lady starts singing. And it's like, what's going on there? But
then there's a guy as well that's, like, doing the other, like, part... Like,
yes,
the
there's
other
two
number.
CGI...
Like, going back and forth.
Yeah. So what did you think of that?
Oh, I loved it. Personally, I think it's a great choice.
It is very funny.
That's when George Lucas is going too far on the CGI. That's when it's like, okay, you need to tone it back a bit.
Yeah.
You need to stop with the CGI. You need to stop with the monsters that are screaming right in the camera.
It's very funny to think that George Lucas just went, I know what this scene needs.
Yeah.
It needs a 2-minute music video from a CGI frog.
It goes on for long as well. Like, it's not 30 seconds, it's not 15 seconds, and then we're seeing Boba Fett. It's 2 minutes of, like, this frog like singing, and it's hard to sit through.
Yeah.
But I'm trying not to like take that into account in terms of my rating because that's not the original movie, if you know what I mean. Like I
yeah.
want to view this from a perspective without CGI in it.
Yeah, fair. All right, so we get a bit more Yoda stuff. So Luke obviously goes back to Dagobah.
I always forgot that he goes back to Dagobah. I never realized in Return of the Jedi he went back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he does visit him a total of twice in the entire saga, because I don't believe he has gone back in between Empire and Return of the Jedi, because it seems like those two are back to back sort of thing. You know, as soon as they can, they're off to save Han. So he doesn't return to Yoda. Obviously, when he gets back to Yoda, he's like, "Yo, what the hell? Darth Vader's my father." And the thing with that is, audiences were so shocked by that reveal that they needed a trusted character to confirm it for them. You know, Darth Vader, he's an unreliable source. Maybe he's just making it up.
Yeah.
Maybe he's just making it up. But Yoda is a trusted source, and so he confirms that.
Well, it was also Ben Kenobi said it as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they were just having every trusted source say it.
It's like, confirmed.
We're not lying.
Yeah.
Ben Kenobi said it.
Yes.
Yoda said it.
So what do you think of Yoda's death in this movie? Obviously he does sort of go and become one with the Force.
Yeah, I've always liked it. How it's just he dies in his hut. How Luke's just by his side, and you know the warm lighting. It's just a calm death, you know. Like it's nothing big. It's just a cool little moment.
Yeah, and wise old Yoda deciding that, you know, even though Luke probably needs him most at the moment, that he's just going to check out. He's just, you know, he's had enough.
It's very different, his character in the prequels and in the original trilogy, and I don't think there's that big of a gap between each of them.
Yeah.
He's like a totally different character in each trilogy. But I don't know which one you prefer, but I kind of like the old wise puppet sort of
the wisecracking, sort of, you know, stealing your lunch.
Hitting R2D2 over the head.
Yes.
I'd much prefer that over, you know, him doing flips, you know, defeating Sidious. Much prefer puppeteering Yoda.
One thing I really liked about this film, and we've talked about Revenge of the Sith previously, I think this actually has very heavy tie-ins to Revenge of the Sith. Obviously, at this stage in the saga, Revenge of the Sith hadn't been made, so that's very impressive considering, you know, they're laying some groundwork here for some eventual payoffs in the prequels. But obviously, we're going through chronologically, so we're getting payoffs now. We're being told things that we've seen in previous movies. So one of them is the fact that Leia and Luke were separated at birth. That obviously happens in Revenge of the Sith, and we get told that in Return of the Jedi. Vader destroys Anakin. That's like the line. So Vader sort of destroyed Anakin. That's what Obi-Wan says, and that's what sort of Yoda says, I think, in Revenge of the Sith. He says, like, you know, Anakin Skywalker is no more, or something like that. Then we also get Leia says that Padme, her mother, was very beautiful, but also very sad. Obviously, you know, Natalie Portman was pretty hot. And then she obviously died of sadness as well, didn't she?
I think this is when George Lucas was really starting to like think of himself, and he was like, okay, I want to create another trilogy that's a prequel to all of this. So in Return of the Jedi, he's sort of setting it up. He's putting stones in place, and that way, when you come to the Phantom Menace, it's like, okay, we saw this referenced in Return of the Jedi.
So there's a plan now.
I think it was intentional. I think he created a bigger story, starting with Return of the Jedi. He's like, okay, this is when we're going to start.
Okay. So you don't believe that George Lucas went into A New Hope with the intention to do 6 movies?
No.
Because he says he did.
No, there's no way.
He says he did.
I know he says he did, but there's
So,
no way.
And so what do we think? Let's talk about then the big reveal, obviously, in this movie. We had a big reveal in the last movie, a big reveal here. which was in fact teased in the previous movie with Yoda saying there is another.
Yep.
It is revealed to the audience that Luke and Leia are actually brother and sister. Now,
Yep.
anybody who watched the previous movies would see that as perhaps problematic, given the fact that they've had a few kisses. They've shared a few kisses throughout the movies. Not one, not even two, maybe even three, I think.
Yeah.
So what do you think? Do you think George Lucas wanted to do that from the get-go? Or when do you think he decided to do that?
I think he went into Empire. He was sort of sitting in the sidelines in Empire, and he was like, okay, look, what if we made them brother and sister? I truly and honestly believe in the original Star Wars, or A New Hope, whatever you want to call it. He never planned for that. There's no possible way he planned for that.
Because they don't... Oh, no. So Luke does, in A New Hope, like Princess Leia, because he says, oh, what do you think... Han goes, what do you think, a girl like that and a guy like me? And Luke's like, no.
Yeah.
I care. So he's very much into Princess Leia in the first movie. And then in the second movie, they have a big kiss. And it's not just a peck, it's a big kiss.
Yeah.
And then we go into this and we find out they're brother and sister. So it's a bit like, what happened? I mean, it's a very famous sort of continuity error.
It's always the bane of like the original trilogy. It's like, okay, well, George Lucas, that's a bit of a questionable storyline you got going on there. There's no way he planned for it. It's just, he's just weird for doing that. There's nothing really else to say about it other than it wasn't intentional.
George Lucas can say whatever he wants. He's the creator of Star Wars at the end of the day. But
I feel like he lies a lot.
Yes, probably. That's probably a fair accusation, especially when it comes to this. I mean, I believe that he may have intended for Darth Vader to be Luke's father from the get-go. But watching those first two movies,
even look at Star Wars, the original. Like it's a complete story from finish to end. You know, they killed the Death Star. There's a happy ending. So even upon that, I don't think they intended for two other movies to be made when they first envisioned the original.
Yeah.
So, and Darth Vader's in the original, right?
Yeah.
So, I believe that. Yeah, Darth Vader was just some plain vanilla villain in the original movies, and then they made him more interesting in the second and third. Because I feel like Star Wars can be viewed as just a singular sort of property, like on its own. You don't have to watch anything else.
It is a very standalone sort of singular movie. So I mean, we could probably theorize about when he sort of came up with the 6-episode plan. Maybe I'd say Empire. Maybe when Empire was such a big success, he said, "Okay, I'm going to lay out the groundwork." But maybe he wanted to do 6 all along.
I'd say Return of the Jedi is when it came about. Is when he started putting stones in place.
A thing I really like about this movie, just moving onwards, is just the development of some of these characters. Princess Leia, Luke, and Han Solo. We've touched on Luke Skywalker. He's come a long way. Princess Leia, she's probably had the least amount of development, probably, and she's sort of just like she's like the steady one, you know. She knows what she's doing. She's a very confident person. But Han Solo is probably the biggest character arc because he's gone from a smuggler, someone who didn't want anything to do with anybody unless he was going to get paid, to now being sort of this general and
like a war hero.
Yeah. Exactly. And he cares about more than just himself. He cares about this cause. And he cares about others as well. And we see that a lot too. So for me, this, if anyone goes through the biggest emotional journey, apart from obviously Anakin Skywalker, but he has the benefit of being the protagonist of the 6 movies. It's Han Solo from A New Hope to Return of the Jedi.
And it's really funny to see that because Han Solo didn't care about like Star Wars. I don't think
Harrison Ford.
Harrison Ford, sorry. I don't think he really cared about Star Wars at any point in time. And I think there was a problem in terms of shooting between Empire and Return of the Jedi, so they just made the storyline to put him in Carbonite.
Yeah.
So he was gone for like a significant portion of Empire and then a significant portion of Return of the Jedi.
Right.
Because he's not there. Like he's missing in both the end and the start of each. So it's just
Not for long though. I think they perhaps thought he wasn't going to come back for Return of the Jedi, and so then it was a bit of ambiguous. Oh, maybe we can kill him.
Yeah.
Maybe if he comes back, he'll be alive.
Yeah.
So, whether Harrison Ford signed on or not probably would have changed the success to failure rate of Jabba's palace. That whole mission.
it would have changed the storyline completely
Oh
of
yeah,
Star Wars
it would have been
altogether.
very dark as well to have somebody like that be killed off.
Yeah. And it's so weird to look at such like a highly esteemed trilogy like Star Wars and see like from the beginning they didn't really have like a clear cut plan of like where they wanted to go with this. If you look at like Snyder or someone like that now, they've already planned out what they want to do in terms of the second, third movies. Star Wars was just kind of figuring out what it was going to do when it was going along.
Yeah, but then it's still, I wouldn't say that they. Yes, this is what I mean. I think after A New Hope, George Lucas planned out the trilogy.
Yep.
The original trilogy, because I don't think you can get as many payoffs in this movie without at least planning before Empire being made. I do think there was a bit of a setup because, we've seen what happens. The sequel trilogy, they didn't make a plan.
Yeah.
And so there was no payoff by the end.
Yeah.
And it just felt like just this, this flat.
But there was
heartless-
also no George Lucas in the sequel trilogy.
Well, exactly.
So
but
maybe that's the reason.
yeah, but then there was also no plan. Like there was,
Yeah,
it was very clear that, you have three movies. You have a setup, you have a continuation, and you have an end.
Well, I think it was just conflict of plans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I don't think anybody had it 1, 2, 3 because there was no director that was supposed to do 1, 2, 3. There was no. Well, there was executives doing 1, 2, and 3, but there was no plan from them.
Yeah, and
Whereas George Lucas, he has 1, 2, and 3.
no,
He's involved.
that's a good point. You can't blame it on differing directors because the original trilogy has 3 different directors.
Yeah.
So I think there's just no cognizance in the sequel trilogy. There's no clear cut storyline that they all decided, hey, let's go with this. Whereas with the original trilogy, George Lucas was kind of the guy in the chair that was saying, okay, this is what I want to happen.
Yeah, this is where it's going to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's very clear. We get lots of payoffs in terms of, Luke becoming a Jedi, Anakin obviously coming back, or Darth Vader turning to the light side. We have the Emperor show up. Obviously, the Emperor's being hinted, so it'd be weird if the Emperor just didn't show up.
Yep.
Like, why are we just going to hint the Emperor without his actual presence being meaningful? It was. Lando Calrissian's now a main cast member.
Yep.
So all of that sort of continuation, and it serves as a good payoff. And I don't think you can do that just by winging it as you go along.
Yeah.
So what do we think of those the Endor sort of sequence? Because it's a bit controversial in terms of Star Wars fans. A lot of people don't like the Ewoks, and a lot of people just think as soon as we get on Endor, the pacing sort of just gets halted. What do you think? Because I have some strong opinions about Endor.
It's very children bait, right? Like it's very determinative that they wanted to drag in the children to see Star Wars because there's these little bears that look appealing to children.
Yeah.
For me personally, I'm not too worried by it. I think some of the Endor sequences look cool. Just seem like a change of scenery from desert to actual green lush forest is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think
We've seen sand planets, we've seen snow planets, we've seen forest planets.
Yeah. So and I also quite like Takodana in The Force Awakens. So I'm a big fan of the forest planets. No, I think it's pretty cool. I think it's cool seeing the differentiated sort of scout troopers now on their scout bikes. That's pretty cool.
Cool design. I love the helmet design there. Oh,
Big fan of the helmet.
One of my
design.
favorite Star Wars designs. Just I don't know why they need to have a special helmet. It's a bit weird, but like it doesn't really. And they're bright white. I mean, you'd think you'd give them camo, like the Kashyyyk troopers.
Yeah.
They had camo, and that was really cool. And they also had the same helmet. Actually, they had the scout helmet when the clones were going onto Kashyyyk. But this is just like bright white, which kind of doesn't really make sense. You can sort of just like see them. Yeah, that's a stormtrooper over there because everything's green and that's white.
Yeah, it's a bit weird, isn't it? Yeah.
But for me, I really like the Ewoks, man. Like maybe I'm just a fan of Star Wars, but like they're just so funny and like wholesome. Like I just love them.
No, I figured you would. Yeah.
And I love Princess Leia's interaction with the first one as well. She's like, you want
Wicked,
some food?
yeah.
And like it's just a hat. Like then he takes off the hat, and the guy's like, oh.
Yeah. Well, Wicket the Ewok is actually played by Warwick Davis, who is quite a big figure in Star Wars. He's also been in Solo: A Star Wars Story. He was part of the sort of pirate gang.
Oh, right.
Yeah, he was in there. But he's also coming back for Willow, one of the TV shows that is coming up. But he's always been like a big part of Star Wars.
Right.
I think he might also be in Harry Potter as well. Yeah, he's a great actor, and just knowing that there's someone in that suit just doing that performance is funny.
It's a great performance as well. And it makes it work. It's very almost like theatre acting in terms of like the comedy. Like it's just so outrageous and funny, and just how they think C-3PO is like a god. It's just like it's just brilliant. It's just some good fun. And being the finale, you could have easily gotten like weighed down with the exposition in terms of Palpatine and the Emperor and the dark side and all of this sort of very heavy stuff. And it's just, I just really like it.
It's cool to have a break.
15 minutes of just some teddy bears running around.
Yeah.
But then also when they go into fight, they're fighting. They're like this indigenous sort of population almost. Yeah. And they live on Endor. The Empire's come in and they don't like the Empire.
It's cool to see their traditional sort of traps and stuff.
Yes.
Two logs smash.
Yeah,
and
very
ATST.
creative. I love that sort of.
Yeah.
That must have been a sort of like a miniature explosion.
Yeah,
or something.
yeah, I think it would.
Because that looked really good.
Yeah.
And I love it as well. They're not invincible. Some of them do die, and we get this really sort of sad sequence where, this little teddy bear is like trying to tug on his other teddy bear friend, and it's not going because he's dead.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh no! And he because they don't have facial expressions, he just like slowly bows his head down. And it's like, oh no!
Yeah, poor guy.
Like teddy bear is dead.
Yeah.
But it's just so funny, and that's great because if they were just OP, it wouldn't have worked as well. There's some real sacrifice going on in the film, which gives it good weight as well. So let's go into the third act then. Personally, I think this Luke and Vader duel is like the best one in the original trilogy. I think it's the best duel in the original trilogy, just because of the stakes and obviously with Palpatine there as well.
Yep.
What do you think of that final sort of duel, the green and the red lightsaber going at it?
I'm a big fan of sort of Luke's torn personality, where Palpatine knows he kind of has to just infuriate him to bring the dark side out of him. And that's why he starts laughing when, Luke pulls his Jedi, his lightsaber out and then tries to strike him down. And then Vader's there to match him.
Yeah, so cool. Across Palpatine's face.
Palpatine's smile,
yeah,
that's a really
good.
cool shot. I quite like that whole duel, how Vader just gets like really pissed and just decides to like
just
chuck his
throws his
lightsaber. And then that became like canon in Star Wars, that it was like a lightsaber throw. But it was really just a dumb decision.
Because, I mean, if Luke caught that lightsaber, it's over for Vader. Like,
yeah.
I mean, Palps could just come in and help him out, but it's still a pretty reckless decision just to be like, you know what?
Yeah.
Throw it.
But it's really cool seeing, Luke Skywalker just going aggro mode.
Yeah.
Like, there's a point where he's just like slamming his lightsaber down on Darth Vader, and Darth Vader's like trying to like brace himself against.
And
like
you're thinking like, oh, is Luke going to go bad? He's getting angry.
Yeah, because the whole point of this duel was for Luke Skywalker to take Darth Vader out and become the new apprentice at the Emperor's side, because Darth Vader's, getting a bit old, he's getting a bit tired. So the Emperor wants a new sidekick.
Yes, and Vader's sort of like, I don't know how he would have felt about that, but there is this dynamic before it, and I love the scene before the duel on Endor where Luke is interacting with Darth Vader, and Luke is just calling him father, and he's like, oh, so you've accepted the truth. And he's like, I believe that you were once my father, Anakin Skywalker, and Darth Vader's like, it's too late for me, son. And it's just like that line delivery there from James Earl Jones is just, Darth Vader's a pretty menacing character up until this point. There's not a lot of range that needs to be done. You sort of just need to be like, go and get the rebel plans, or I'll,
It's actually really funny hearing the original Darth Vader voice in the behind the scenes in A New Hope, where he's just like, go and get the rebel star plans, and then
not very intimidating.
And then they comped in James Earl Jones' voice on top of that.
Better.
Yeah,
much better. But yeah, there's a scene, or there's a shot rather, towards the end of that scene where Luke's had this interaction with Vader, and you can see it sort of taking effect on Vader, and he sort of walks towards the railing that's sort of on his face, and obviously he's wearing a helmet, and this is one of the best things about The Mandalorian, is when these characters are wearing helmets, there's a mystery as to what they're feeling, but you can sort of guess, and by the tone of his voice and the body language, you can also be like, oh, maybe Luke's getting somewhere here, maybe this guy isn't truly all evil. So I love that shot, because without any dialogue, George Lucas doesn't do this very often. But without dialogue, he perfectly conveys the emotion. If this was the prequels, Darth Vader would just go, I'm feeling so conflicted, son.
Somehow Palpatine is he does a lot of cool stuff like that, and I thought you were going to talk about the shot where Luke looks at his hand.
That's it.
That's another really cool shot where he's just looking at his hand.
I mean, that's the turning point for Luke, isn't it? Because he was really angry, and then he chops the hand off, sees that his father has the
same mechanical hand.
So he's like, oh, I can relate to this. He looks at his hand.
Am I becoming, my father? Is this the path that I'm going down?
Or you could say like, he's feeling a bit of sympathy. Oh, I'm seeing this thing as a monster. But by chopping off the hand, I can see that, he's obviously a human, but he's got some robotic parts. Oh wait, I have some robotic parts. Maybe we're not so different after all.
I guess you could look at it either way.
But that's the beauty of it with dialogue that's not too specific, but still conveys the same emotion. Like both of us there have come from a different perspective of what it specifically means, but we all know that Luke seeing that hand is changing how he feels for the better from the light side perspective. So what do you think of the eventual redemption of Darth Vader then? I believe that the whole no was added in. I think a silent one would have been better, but if he just didn't say anything and then he just picks Palpatine up and throws him off instead of just going, no. 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 But what do you think of the redemption of Darth Vader?
I mean, look, it was bound to happen.
Was it? If you were an audience member, do you think it would have happened?
I think the fight's set up in that way that, Luke's getting absolutely demolished on the floor. It's going to happen.
He's not going to defeat Darth
Vader.
Vader.
They're not going to defeat. They're not going to kill off Luke Skywalker. As I say that.
Ryan Johnson sent to the chat.
Well, they're not going to kill off Luke Skywalker this early into his character arc.
Wait for years.
I quite like Darth Vader's redemption, and there's this shot where we see his sort of face light up, and you can see the skull inside, so you still realise that he's a person.
He's human,
and just him chucking him down, like the reactor shaft, and then him
killing him forever.
And there's this robot chicken, like YouTube. I don't know if you know what robot chicken is, but it's.
Oh yes, yeah.
You
yeah,
do? Okay,
yeah.
yeah. And there's this. I always like put it as canon in my head.
Right.
That when Palpatine goes down the reactor shaft, he's like sort of going over like everything that he should have done in his life, and he's dreaming about being on like a beach, like just tanning and stuff. I'll show you the clip after, but like
I think I've seen it.
Yeah.
I think I've seen it, but I don't remember it exactly. I would like to.
And then he lands on the Millennium Falcon,
What?
like completely naked. So I always have it in canon in my mind that's what happens.
What I have in canon is that he dies.
Yeah. Well, we both have it as a way that he doesn't exist after.
Yes, your version is slightly happier for Palpatine. I
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he gets thrown down a shaft, which doesn't necessarily mean in Star Wars that you're dead.
Yeah.
So like, okay, but then the Death Star gets blown up. So
Where is he going? Where did he go to survive?
yeah, because I mean, Luke fell down a shaft on Bespin, but
Yeah, but he got
but
picked
then
up.
Bespin didn't blow up.
Yeah, and we saw him get picked up.
Exactly. And
Where did Palpatine go? We can get into this another day. I mean, this is just a whole debate.
yeah. So, what do you think of then the scene? I think it always hits quite hard with me when well, now Anakin Skywalker is being like dragged along by Luke and sort of up into the Imperial ship, and
Yep.
we get to see Darth Vader without his helmet on for the first time, which would have been a big deal. I think that scene's just very nice. The whole story is sort of been a father and son story. It's why Star Wars works so well with father and son. But what do you think of that interaction?
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that interaction between them. I think Luke's sort of realizing that, I've got this person as my father that not a lot of people like, but he's still my
his
father. Yeah. And I really like the scene that follows on from that, how Luke takes him back to Endor, and I absolutely love this shot. There's a shot where it's panned out and you see this fire, and then Luke's just sort of eerily standing there. I think it's one of the most beautiful shots in Star Wars.
I love that shot.
Absolutely love that shot. Just the whole sequence of Luke,
With the Force theme in the background.
the Force theme, him sort of having one last chat to his father is great. There's this whole debate as well as to whether, because there's two shots to this. There's one shot where they have eyebrows on on Darth Vader, and then there's one shot where they don't have eyebrows, and everyone got like really pissed off because like it's like, well,
he's been burnt.
If he's been burnt, how does he have eyebrows?
So does he have eyebrows now?
So in the version I watched, he didn't have eyebrows.
Okay, so that would be the same version.
So you would have the same version, but I just found it really funny how Star Wars fans got pissed about that sort of small stuff.
I mean, Star Wars fans are very good at keeping. In fact, a lot of the times they're better at the actual people who are being paid to do this. Yeah. Which just goes to show, how terrible some of those people are at their jobs.
Yeah.
But that seems like a logical thing.
Yeah.
But how else are you going to get looking like that without being burnt? Because I was going to say, like, at that stage, without the prequels, we don't know that Anakin was, like, burnt alive.
Yeah.
But how else would you get looking like that?
Yeah. I mean,
some acid maybe, but that would still get rid of your eyebrows.
Yeah.
It doesn't have hair anywhere else. So.
True.
What you were saying just before made me think of the Force Ghost, Anakin Skywalker.
Yep.
But just briefly, that whole scene where there's some really beautiful music.
Yeah,
everyone's
they're
really
celebrating.
happy, they've won.
There's an Ewok like banging on their heads.
Yeah, they're all dancing around, and I love all of the lads are like giving each other like really passionate bro hugs.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, come here, and like they just go in with such force. It's like, oh yeah, it's like a man hug. They're like patting each other on the back aggressively. Lando comes in, gives Han a hug.
Yeah.
Han gives Luke a hug.
And then Leia revealing to Han that like she's like, he's my brother, and then Han's like, oh yeah,
yes,
yeah,
and then he's like, what?
Yeah,
yeah, it's kind of like everyone's reaction when you found that out. But yeah, the Ewok celebration, man, there's something so wholesome about it. and it really gives me a feeling that I don't get in any other Star Wars movie, which makes sense because Revenge of the Sith, I love that movie, but the way it ends,
It's a very
not,
dark ending.
Yeah, exactly, and that's not a bad thing at all. But watching this movie, you can watch it and you're like, oh, that's just so beautiful. The movie's ended. I feel like I've been on a journey.
Yep.
Now the world is.
To me, and I think to a lot of people, that's the end of Star Wars. Like
It's a beautiful ending.
that's the end. You know, you've had your prequel trilogy, which led into the original trilogy, and then this is the end where they're all sort of sitting in that one group, and then that's where the shot ends.
Yeah.
You know, you got Lando, you got Han,
They're
you
all
got Leia.
together.
They're all together.
Everyone's having a great time.
Yeah, and I think one of my favorite shots in Star Wars of all time, or one of my favorite sequences, is where Luke walks over and he sees the 3 Force
And
ghosts.
he's got his hand on the tree.
He's got his hand on the tree.
I love that shot as well. Just the
absolutely
smile
love
that you
it.
get from Luke there as well is really nice.
Yeah.
You don't actually see Luke smile a lot.
Yeah.
Because he goes through a lot. You know, think of when he was just trying to pick up some power converters at the store, and then his uncle and auntie got, burnt to a crisp. And then since then, he's been on a big mission. I mean, he's got his hand chopped off.
Yeah.
He's found out his dad is like the worst man in the world. And
Yeah.
And his dad died.
Yeah.
So he's been on a journey, but now he can smile and he can enjoy this. He looks across. He sees Yoda. Makes perfect sense. He sees Obi-Wan. Makes perfect sense. And then he sees Hayden Christensen.
Yeah.
What? What is going on?
Well, okay, so in the original cut, the guy who plays Darth Vader when he takes off his mask, he's the guy that was in that original shot.
Which makes sense.
Which doesn't make sense to me. It makes absolutely no sense because that shot at the end is Padawan or Anakin.
Yes. Yeah.
That's Anakin in his prime, in his youth.
Yeah.
So you're not going to have old guy Darth Vader playing young Anakin Skywalker in that shot. If you know what I mean. You need to have Hayden Christensen because he's the young Anakin. He's been portrayed as the young Anakin in Star Wars chronology.
Yes, but we've just seen Darth Vader's face.
But that's old Darth Vader. People look different as they age.
So, okay. I think you're using the argument that I've seen used by a few Star Wars fans, I think, that when Anakin Skywalker became Darth Vader, Anakin is here. Anakin has stopped.
Yep.
Like, he's stopped living. Like, and then Darth Vader has now been created. Once Darth Vader dies, Anakin sort of, as far as the Force dimension is concerned, Anakin is now, like, reborn.
Yep.
But, like, he looks like he did 30 years ago.
Okay.
I don't get it.
Okay, so if they were to do the Force projection correctly, it would be Darth Vader / Anakin in his Darth Vader outfit as a Force ghost. There makes absolutely no sense for old Darth Vader guy to be wearing Jedi robes because he's never worn Jedi robes.
Okay, I see what you mean there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah.
So it's either Hayden Christensen or it's either Anakin, old Anakin in Darth Vader.
They should go back and put old Hayden Christensen in.
Okay, but what's old Hayden Christensen?
How he is now. He's going to be Darth Vader now, isn't he? He's going to be Darth Vader in the Obi-Wan series. So,
but would you have Hayden Christensen as Anakin or Darth Vader?
Anakin. I mean, he
But he is Anakin.
He's gone to the light side, yes. But it doesn't make sense that this old man, who is now Anakin Skywalker, when he goes into the Force dimension, he looks like he did when he was 18. Like, it doesn't...
Yeah, I know it doesn't make sense, but I think it's the Force dimension is a projection of the good guys, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to have a bad guy.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I like it because it's like a prequel sort of novel.
Yeah,
I like the respect to the prequels.
Yeah.
But it still doesn't really make
I don't think
sense.
there's any proper way to do that.
No.
Yeah.
Unless you were to do it again and get older Hayden Christensen in his Jedi robes and then put him in.
Yeah.
That would sort of make more sense.
But why? Why would that make more sense?
Because what doesn't make sense? Have Hayden Christensen. That's cool. That's great.
Okay, so you want
Anakin's-
40-year-old Anakin.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I know what you're saying.
Yeah. I like Anakin Skywalker as in the prequel version. Great. I love him.
Yeah.
Have him in Return of the Jedi. Great. But I just saw not Hayden Christensen as Darth Vader.
Yeah.
So if you hadn't watched the prequels and you'd watched this, you'd be like, who's that? You don't know.
But I kind of like that. I kind of like the fact that it's, it's sort of secretive. It's, you have to know Star Wars to know
Yeah.
who this person is.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, Obi-Wan Kenobi was like, if Luke didn't know who it was, Obi-Wan Kenobi would have been like, oh, that's your father in his prime, in his
Right.
youth.
Yes.
So-
Unfortunately, I didn't get to be my sexier self. I'm stuck. I'm stuck as Alan Guinness.
Yeah, okay, well, there's a problem there in
What
terms
if they
of
put
continuity.
what if they put Ewan McGregor in? That would be pretty cool.
That would be pretty cool.
I mean,
and then have them like hug. Oh, that would be cool.
I mean, surely we're gonna get some sort of flashbacks in the Obi-Wan series.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, Ewok Celebration. It's just a wholesome way to end this huge franchise.
Yep.
And it's a beautiful moment, and it would make sense that if you're gonna do any more movies, have it be prequel movies because we don't want to interfere with this brilliant ending.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. Music segment. So every podcast we like to put some songs from the soundtrack into this playlist on Spotify called the Rewatch playlist. And this week we're obviously going to put in the Ewok Celebration song. Now, if that's not the Endor theme, I'm going to put that in, and also the Endor theme because I really like that theme.
It's on a different soundtrack, the Ewok Celebration. It's not in like the...
Not in the official one?
Well, it is an official one, but it's in like another one for some reason.
Right.
But we'll discuss that
Okay.
later on, and I'll show you where that is.
Cool. Because, the unique music to this film is the Endor stuff. So
Yeah.
The rest is sort of, reused.
Yeah.
But I'll also check if we don't have the Force theme in, then that's got to go in as well.
I'm certain that is in there. I mean, if we didn't put that in for A New Hope, what were we thinking?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that I think the Force theme is just called the main theme for A New Hope, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you're right about that.
Unless that's the title theme, but the title theme is different to the Force theme, isn't it?
Main title is what we've got in there.
Yeah, so I think that is different to the Force theme, so we might have to put the Force theme in there as well.
But I don't think the Force theme is on Spotify.
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, then let's go to some final thoughts, sort of tier ranking. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I can go first. Like I've said before, it's just a fun movie. I don't think there's particularly anything special about this movie that was groundbreaking like Star Wars or Empire Strikes Back. Yeah, you've got Ewoks that are fun. You've got just great laughable moments. I think the whole Jabba's sail barge was a great sequence. And then you haven't got like some great sequences in there, and that's Star Wars, right? And I think Return of the Jedi probably suffers from that the most out of all three of them. It's definitely my least favorite out of the three in terms of how much I would watch them. I'd probably watch number 1 and number 2 before I watch this. But that's not to say that I wouldn't watch this. If I was to watch them, I'd watch all three together. Yeah, look, it's just a great time. B+, I think, is a good rating for that.
Nice. I'm going to be very similar, but on the other side, probably just because I really like the movie. A- for me. I've given... Well, you've given A+ to both A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back. I gave A New Hope an A, Empire Strikes Back an A+. This is going into A-.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, for me, it's all A's. It's an average an A for the trilogy. It's incredible. One of the best trilogies of all time. I think probably The Lord of the Rings is probably better as a trilogy. But then again, those movies, if Star Wars could have an extra 3 hours, then maybe it would be as good,
Yep.
But it's very different in terms of the mythology and all of that.
Yeah.
But Star Wars for me, it's one of the greatest trilogies of all time. A great ending as well, and the ending is perhaps the hardest thing to do.
Yeah.
And George Lucas, man, he's given us 3 movies that are genuinely fantastic, both as singular adventures and as an overarching story. That's the most important thing, I think, because a lot of the times you could have films that are, they're good for, they're good endings or maybe they're good beginnings, but they're not really good movies by themselves. You've got to watch the other ones to sort of get the full benefit. But these, it's just you can go in, have a great time, come out, or you can watch all three, or you can watch the prequels and then these. It's just a great time and some iconic characters, and look, it deserves all of the praise it gets. And the fandom, obviously created out of these three movies, has it's only grown. And look, man, I think this may have been the best point to end Star Wars. Not after Return of the Jedi, but after Revenge of the Sith. I mean, I think
for sure, I would have preferred to end the trilogy there and to have Revenge of the Sith as the final movie, and then not get anything after that, even if it meant that we didn't get Mando or anything like that.
Yeah.
Because I would have preferred that to not have the sequel trilogy.
Right.
Like, we didn't need a sequel trilogy. So if that meant sacrificing Mando, I would have been fine with that.
I would have loved, and we almost did get, like a George Lucas, another singular movie or a singular series. I mean, obviously we got the Clone Wars, and that was fantastic.
Yeah.
But that was George Lucas involved in that.
Yeah.
For most of the runtime, or most of the seasons. So, yeah, man. I mean, George Lucas, he's the creator of Star Wars. So if you take out the George Lucas out of the Star Wars, then you don't have Star Wars anymore. And we're seeing that now. And look, singular projects can sometimes be great. Like, I think Rogue One is a genuinely good Star Wars movie.
Same.
I think it's one of the best ones.
Yeah.
But I think it also understands the universe of Star Wars the best as well.
Yeah.
And so I know George Lucas isn't being consulted on any of them anymore. And look, man,
he is involved in The Mandalorian, I believe.
I don't think he may name a character every now and then. He may show up on set, but I don't think
there's shots where he's sitting in seats next to Favreau and Filoni on set.
And that's cool, but I don't believe that if George said, we need to kill Baby Yoda.
Oh, no, they wouldn't do it.
They wouldn't do it.
No.
So, I think
he's not the final, this is what happens.
Yeah. I mean, it's great that he's still allowed on set, because a few years ago, I don't think he would have been able to come onto set.
No.
But yeah, I mean, George Lucas, one of those visionaries that honestly just changed movies, changed the whole landscape. So
created sci-fi. Well, maybe I shouldn't say that.
Certainly popularized that sci-fi fantasy genre sort of thing.
Yeah.
It made it cool as well. Yeah. Well, maybe not at the time, but certainly now.
In hindsight.
Certainly now.
Yeah.
I mean, you might have got a bit of flack for being a Star Wars fan back in the 90s, but not anymore. It's very cool now. All cool people are Star Wars fans.
Yeah.
If you're a Star Trek fan, then you are still a nerd. So
you're a loser.
You guys have a long way to go. Star Trek fans have a long way to go. All right, so I think we'll end it there for today. So thank you very much to everyone for listening to this episode of the Rewatch podcast. We have officially finished the original trilogy. So there's that. Darkness looms on the horizon as...
There's been an awakening.
Yes.
Have you felt it?
Oh, bro, that trailer, that's one of the best trailers I've ever seen in my life, honestly.
Maybe we should just review the trailers.
Yes, A+.
You all know what this means.
Yes. All right. So next episode will be the Rewatch Awards. We'll take a look back at all of the movies that we've done in season 2. And so that's pretty much all of the podcasts we've done in 2021, and then plus this one. So we'll do our little Oscars show, which will be good fun, where we do awards. Some awards are like the Oscars, and some of them are created ourselves, like the prestigious meme award.
Yeah.
That's one of the prestigious. I mean, it's in the title.
Yeah.
Prestigious meme award.
You know what it means.
Everyone wants that one.
Yeah. George Lucas will be attending.
Look, and there is some competition for some awards.
Yes.
This season, so it's gonna be a good episode.
We have put Martin on the no appearance list. He is banned from the venue.
Yes, of course. Martin Scorsese had a bit of a
an outburst.
Yeah, an outburst. That's the word I was looking for. At our last show, so he's now been blacklisted from all future events.
He's not welcome.
Look, he just can't contain his anger, the little man.
Yeah. Little man.
All right. If you would like to follow us on Instagram, you can do so at the Rewatch Pod.
Yeah.
And if you'd like to subscribe to the YouTube channel, just search the Rewatch on YouTube. Just remember, The Irishman is not a good movie. Thank you for listening, and bye for now.
See ya.